Let's play a game. It's called Monopoly. But in this version, you start with $0, the bank hates you, and the other player has already bought Boardwalk, Park Place, and your grandma's house. You've been told a lie, a very expensive lie. They say if you just work harder, skip the avocado toast, and stop buying $7 lattes, you'll eventually get the keys. But while you were busy saving pennies, something massive, something hungry, was quietly buying up the entire neighborhood. Welcome to the new American reality. You will own nothing, and you will hate it. This isn't a housing bubble, it's a hostile takeover. Let's rewind the tape. We need to go back to a time that feels almost mythological to anyone under the age of 40. Picture the classic, sepia-toned American dream. It's 1955. Meet your grandpa. Let's call him Bob. Bob didn't have a master's degree, he didn't have a side hustle drop-shipping vitamins on Amazon, and he certainly didn't have a crypto portfolio. Bob worked at a local factory, maybe screwing caps onto toothpaste tubes from 9 to 5. By all modern standards, Bob was totally average. But here is the kicker. Bob owned a 3-bedroom house with a garage, a backyard, and a lawn he mowed with a smile every Sunday, and he paid for it on a single income, with enough left over to raise 3 kids and take a vacation to the lake every summer. How? Was it magic? No. It was simple math. Back then, the median home price was only about twice the median family income. A house was attainable, it was boring, it was stable. Most importantly, it was treated as a utility, like water or electricity. You bought a house to live in it. It was a place to hang ugly wallpaper, argue over what to watch on TV, and grow old. It wasn't a high-yield investment vehicle designed to outperform the S&P 500. The entire system was designed to support this. The 30-year fixed-rate mortgage was the golden ticket, a uniquely American invention created to stabilize society. It locked in your biggest monthly expense for decades. While your wages hopefully went up, your mortgage payment stayed flat. It was the ultimate inflation hedge for the little guy. It was a contract between the citizen and the economy. You participate, you contribute, and you get your own piece of earth. But slowly, silently, the script was rewritten. Somewhere along the line, we stopped looking at houses as shelter and started looking at them as asset class. We became obsessed with property values. We started treating our neighbors' homes not as a community, but as comparables in a portfolio. And once the big money realized that residential housing was the largest asset class in the world and that people will pay anything to keep a roof over their heads, they started drooling. The neighborhood didn't just get expensive, it got financialized. And that laid the red carpet for the predators to walk right in. Then came 2008. The housing bubble didn't just pop, it detonated. The global economy melted down, and for millions of American families, it was the end of the world. Foreclosure signs popped up on front lawns like tombstones in a graveyard. People packed their lives into cardboard boxes and walked away from their dreams ruined. For regular people, it was a tragedy. But for Wall Street, it was the greatest Black Friday sale in history. While you were panicking about your job security and watching your 401k evaporate, the biggest financial sharks in the room smelled blood in the water. They looked at the wreckage of the American housing market and didn't see disaster. They seen an asset class that was mispriced. Here is the glitch in the matrix that most people missed. Before 2008, big multinational corporations didn't really buy single-family homes. It was considered a bad business model. It was too messy. Dealing with leaky toilets, broken furnaces, and angry tenants in suburban Ohio wasn't worth their time. They stuck to what they knew: skyscrapers, shopping malls, and commercial complexes. But suddenly, houses were dirt cheap, pennies on the dollar. And thanks to the Federal Reserve printing money like it was going out of style, interest rates hit the floor. This created a perfect storm for a new kind of predator. Enter the institutional investors. Giants like Blackstone, not to be confused with BlackRock, though they're both eating at the same buffet, launched a massive experiment. They started buying houses, not one by one, not carefully selecting a cute bungalow. They bought them by the thousands. They went to courthouse steps and foreclosure auctions with duffel bags of cash, metaphorically and sometimes literally. They didn't walk into an open house and ask about the school district or check if the basement smelled like mold. They wrote checks for entire zip codes, sight unseen, cash down. No inspections, no contingencies. This birthed companies like Invitation Homes, which suddenly found themselves owning tens of thousands of properties across the country. Now, fast forward to today. Imagine you were trying to buy your first home. You do everything right. You scrape together a down payment. You get pre-approved for a mortgage, and you find a place you love. You write a heartfelt letter to the seller about how you want to raise your kids there, and then, bam, you get rejected. Why? Because you were outbid by a faceless LLC that paid 20% over the asking price in all cash. You aren't competing with another young couple. You aren't competing with a family looking for a fresh start. You are competing with a hedge fund that manages trillions of dollars. It is like bringing a plastic spoon to a nuclear war. You cannot win. And the worst part? They aren't buying these houses to flip them for a quick profit. That would almost be better, because at least the house would go back on the market. No, they are buying them to hold forever. They realize something terrifyingly simple. You can refuse to buy a new iPhone. You can refuse to buy a Tesla. You can even refuse to buy brand name cereal. But you cannot refuse to have a place to sleep. Shelter is not optional. Housing was transformed from a path to freedom into a permanent subscription service. They turned the American dream into a rental agreement, and once they control the supply, they control the price. The glitch isn't a mistake anymore, it's a feature of the new system. So we know who is buying the houses, but we need to understand why. Why does a pension fund in California or a sovereign wealth fund in the Middle East care about a random duplex in Nashville, Tennessee? 2 words, the yield. Here is the boring financial truth that ruined your life. For a long time, rich people and banks could just buy government bonds and sit on a beach while the interest rolled in. It was safe, easy money. But for years after the crash, the Federal Reserve kept interest rates near zero. Safe money became dead money. So trillions of dollars started frantically looking for a new home. They needed something safe, like a bond, but with higher returns, like a stock. They looked at housing and realized, wait, this isn't a house, this is a bond wrapped in drywall. Think about it, a tenant paying rent is just an interest payment that walks, talks, and takes out the trash. And unlike a boring bond, you can raise the rent every single year. But here is where it gets dystopian. They aren't just guessing what to charge you. They are using AI to rig the game. In the old days, landlords were in competition. If landlord A charged $2,000, landlord B might charge $1,900 to steal the tenant. That's how the free market is supposed to work. Competition keeps prices down. But the big corporate landlords killed competition. They use software, like the infamous RealPage or Yardi, to share their private data. They feed the algorithm exactly what everyone else is charging down to the penny. Then, the algorithm spits out a number. It tells the landlords, hey, don't charge $900. The data shows this tenant has nowhere else to go. Charge them $2,200. And because all the big landlords in the city are using the same software, they all raise their prices at the exact same time. It is essentially a cartel, but without the smoky backroom meetings. It's price fixing outsourced to a robot. This technology removes human empathy from the equation. A human landlord named Dave might hesitate to raise rent on a single mom who just lost her job. Dave has a conscience. An algorithm does not have a conscience. It has a directive: maximize the yield. This shifts the entire structure of the economy. We are moving from an ownership society to a usership society. They want you to subscribe to everything. You subscribe to Netflix for entertainment. You subscribe to Uber for transport. And now, you subscribe to Wall Street for shelter. The problem is when you subscribe to everything, you own nothing. You build wealth for them and zero equity for yourself. You are running on a hamster wheel that powers their yacht. So where does this leave us? If you zoom out, the picture becomes clear. We aren't just in a housing crisis. We are drifting toward a new kind of feudalism. But this time, instead of lords in stone castles and peasants in mud huts, we have asset management firms in glass towers and permanent renters with Netflix subscriptions. The barrier to entry for the middle class is being raised higher every year. It's not an accident. It's a business model. A society of renters is a society that is easier to control, easier to monetize, and harder to liberate. Owning a home was never just about the bricks and mortar. It was about autonomy. It was the one asset that gave a regular person the ability to say no to a rent hike, to say no to being moved across town, to say no to the whims of a market that doesn't care if you live or die. When they buy the neighborhood, they aren't just buying the land. They are buying your future stability. They are monetizing your need for shelter. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. The first step to beating a rigged game is admitting that it's rigged. You can't win by playing by the old rules, saving pennies while they print billions. You have to understand their playbook. You have to see the strings. If you want to understand the hidden economic machines operating in the shadows, if you want to know how money actually works when the cameras are off, then you are in the right place. We are building a library of truth for the skeptical mind. Hit that subscribe button to join us. The system relies on your ignorance. Let's prove them wrong. I'll see you in the next deep dive.